Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AAIM Employers Association, and welcome to This Week at Work.
Welcome to This Week at Work, the only show to pack workplace news, practical HR solutions, and timely insights into every 30-minute episode. It's Thursday, December 12th, episode 307. Today, are you ready for an employee retention success story? One that likely hits close to home? Today, we spotlight PLZ's Regional HR Director, Karen Price, and hear how she went from identifying issues to establishing a retention plan that relies heavily on industry-leading training from AIM. This show is brought to you by AIM Employers Association, live every Thursday morning, so you can regularly connect with their experts and get your legal questions addressed by Ogletree Deacons. And now, it's time for This Week at Work.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Good morning, Bert. Just a few more shows, and this year will be a wrap.
You're right, Phil. And I'm not with you next week. I'll be traveling, but we'll need the rest towards the end of December because we've seen over 2024 this accumulation of changes balloon up, and that balloon is bursting right now with news literally by the minute.
I tell you, it is hard for me to keep up between everything that's going on. But that's why people tune in and listen to this program, because we're going to bring them, the information they need to know when they need it, just in time. So I know we got a lot to talk about. I'm really interested in what's happening with Proposition A, because I know you and I just had a big program, was it earlier this week? Yeah, on Monday. I mean, my weeks are running together. And from Monday to now, there's been changes that we weren't able to share. So we'll be breaking some of that information right here. Bert, say good morning to Karen, Karen Price with PLZ Corp. She is our guest today. She does some fantastic things over at PLZ, so we're happy to have her. Yep. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning.
Yep. And back with us is Matt Weidman. Matt is our manager and product producer for training and organizational development. He does a great job for us. He was our guest last week, but he works very close with PLZ. So I wanted to bring Matt back in as he might be able to share some insight, because it's been a real pleasure working with PLZ and seeing some of the improvements they made. So stay tuned for that and learn about the turnaround that they have had in their turnover rate and how they got there. But Bert, before we do that, let's introduce our poll question for today. And since we're going to be talking about turnover with Karen, let's have a question related to turnover. Do you think your turnover rate will go up or down in 2025? And we have 4 options for you to select from. And of course, we'd like to have your comments as well, always in the comment section, if you have something else that you would like to add. I'm going to predict, Bert, now, you like to swami and predict things, and I'm going to predict turnover rates next year going up.
I agree with you, Phil.
Yeah, here's my thought. I think the economy is going to bust wide open here. And I think what's going to drive the busting of the economy is when we open up and we start producing oil again at higher rates. And that's going to put just enough drain on the employment sector in all areas, from labor to technology and supply chain, that's going to just push us right over the edge a little bit. And most importantly, it's been about 3 years since the Great Resignation. When we get to September, October next year, it'll be about 3 years, right? And people kind of have this magical mindset that when I start an employer, I'm going to stay 3 years. And after 3 years, I'm a free agent again. And people start looking for jobs, and there's a lot of movement. And I see that holds very true in the HR profession, and I think it holds true in many of the other professional fields. So I'm predicting next year, turnover is going up. And we're going to get right back into a Great Resignation period. And you've seen my data, and I argue the data says there's only one way for this to go. And I know sometimes you feel differently, but we're going to see. We'll know. And you and I will be here talking about it as it happens.
We will check in with you next year on this, Phil.
For sure. All right. You ready for Lawyer on the Clock?
Of course.
All right. Nick, pull that lever.
All right, it's time to look into what's trending in employment law Lawyer, you're on the clock.
That we had a great program earlier in the week. We did it live at AIM with the simulcast. I think we had about 140, 150 participants between live and simulcast. And during that program, we really dug into the details of Missouri's new Proposition A, which is Missouri's paid sick leave.
I would tell you, we scheduled an hour and a half and we went over 2 hours. Yeah.
Yes. We had a lot of questions we answered. It was a great program, and we were really trying to get people immersed in the new law so that they could be prepared to implement the new paid sick leave law next May.
I think you should just pat yourself on the back right now with the job that you did. There you go. Well done.
How about that? All right. So I did want to give an update to this, and just in the last 2 days, a lawsuit was filed in the Missouri that goes to the Missouri Supreme Court, challenging Missouri's minimum wage and paid sick leave law. The action was taken by 3 Missouri citizens and the Missouri Grocers Association, the Missouri Restaurant Associated, the Associated Industries of Missouri, which is a different group than your AIM, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, and the Missouri Forest Product Association, and the Missouri Chamber of Commerce. And in the 5-count verified petition, they allege Proposition A should be invalidated for 5 separate reasons. The first is that the fiscal note summary related to the minimum wage increase did not properly address or accurately address the cost to local government, private employers, and the state administrative costs to enforce the new law. This one's really interesting. The summary statement that appeared on the ballot did not disclose that the paid sick leave law use was capped, that the cap would vary by the size of the employer, that the law exempted some employers, that local governments were given oversight of the law, that only public higher education institutions are exempted, that the mandate allows paid sick leave use for non-health reasons, and that the mandate includes new criminal penalties for non-compliance. Remember, we talked about the misdemeanor for each violation when we talked about the law on Monday. The third reason is that Proposition A violates the Missouri Constitution. The fourth reason is it violates the Missouri Constitution in a second way. And then the fifth reason is that Proposition A violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. So we will see this case again, was filed directly with the Missouri Supreme Court, and we'll have to see how this one shakes out.
All right. So that's a lot. Now, this is a little bit new ground for me. Maybe it's everyday stuff for, a sharp guy like you, but a little bit of new territory for me. So what do I do? Right. I'm just like your firm and Karen's businesses here in Eastern Missouri. And, the couple weeks from now, I'm adjusting pay rates. I'm dealing with wage compression, and we're going to have Mikey Mack on here again, talking a little bit about that here, I think, next week. And then we have administrative changes that are needing to take place as it relates to policy and handbook and notifications and all kinds of technical changes in my payroll system as well, programming changes. Do we sit and wait? Or are we talking about this is going to be months? It's going to go on delay? Any idea what we do now?
So the good news is I don't think it's going to be months and months. I think it might be a month. It might be a couple months. And the reason why it won't go on is because it was filed directly with the Missouri Supreme Court. And so I think the Missouri Supreme Court will address it very quickly. Of course, the minimum wage goes into effect on January 1. And so that could mean that the Missouri Supreme Court gets to it immediately, or at least issues some sort of a preliminary ruling here to give employers guidance. Until the Supreme Court issues some sort of a ruling, everyone should prepare for this to go into effect. People should be preparing right now for the minimum wage to go into effect on January 1. And then, of course, we have until May to actually implement the paid sick leave law. I think we'll know something well before May on where this law stands.
Yeah. just anecdotally, things that I'm hearing from individuals is people voted for the minimum wage increase. They were not voting for the paid sick time. It was in their minds. There was two different things that they were thinking about when they voted. I'm not saying I represent a large group of opinions in that. I'm just saying those are anecdotal statements that people shared with me. That, oh, I didn't realize the sick time was like this, and maybe kind of was hidden and buried, which is a traditional political style, right?
Of course.
Bury things. All right, what else you got there, Bert?
All right, so I want to talk about another absolutely huge development that took place yesterday. And Nick, I sent you a slide, if you don't mind putting that one up for our listeners, viewers. Phil, you and I have been talking for quite a while. I know when we did a presentation probably about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, on what to expect, what might happen pre-election. So we talked about it pre-election, what you could expect maybe out of a Trump administration or out of a Harris administration. I spoke about a week ago at my firm's quarterly breakfast briefing on what to expect under a new Trump administration. And one of the most interesting things is the NLRB the National Labor Relations Board has been the most activist NLRB that we've seen in the history of the NLRB in its 80 years. And this is not unusual from one administration to another, that because of the way the terms of the board members are staggered, that a incoming president does not necessarily get control of the NLRB at the beginning of his administration. And so what you see on the screen here is a reflection of the staggered terms. And this is your NLRB as it exists today on December 12th, 2024. You have 3 Democrat seats at the NLRB, 3 Democrat board members. There's an empty Republican seat, and then there's 1 Republican member right now. Again, even having 3-1 is not necessarily unusual for the NLRB. There's a Republican who will be nominated for that 3rd seat, or for that missing seat. And this was probably going to take place under the Trump administration anyway. And so I want to point out that Chair Lauren McFerrin, her term is set to expire December 16th in just a few days here. And she had been renominated by President Biden, and people really were expecting her to get reconfirmed, and that she would be on the NLRB. Then it would not be until August 27, 2026, when David Prouty's term expired, that Trump would get control of the NLRB. So like about a little over a year and a half into Trump's presidency, he would not have control of the NLRB. Well, yesterday, Chuck Schumer called Lauren McFerrin's nomination to the floor, and to the Senate floor, for confirmation. And Senators Sinema and Manchin both voted against McFerrin, and her nomination failed. And so what this means is that Trump is going to get control of the NLRB very early into his presidency. I think he's going to nominate 2 new board members immediately upon his inauguration. And I think that they will sail through. I think they'll make it, and you're going to have a Trump NLRB that's going to be 3-1 in favor of the Republicans for a short period of time, and then it's going to be 3-2 thereafter. And so Trump will have control of the NLRB throughout his entire next term.
Yeah, that's an interesting situation. It doesn't happen, like you said, very often.
Yeah, very unusual that he's going to get control of his board from almost day one. And this is going to affect everything from election rules, the new rule that basically the employer has to file the petition. It's going to affect non-compete, trade secret agreements, confidentiality, non-solicitation agreements. It's going to affect everything all over the board. For both union and non-union employers. It is a hugely significant development, and really does mark a failure for this last administration and the current administration, and for Schumer personally.
Yeah. All right, Bert, we got one more minute. What else do you have for us?
All right, and I'll just mention it really quickly, Phil, because I told you we've really been focusing a lot on this case of the city Muldrow versus the city of St. Louis, where the U.S. Supreme Court sort of lessened the standard for what constitutes an adverse employment action to an employee. And, you know, it takes time for the Supreme Court decision to be interpreted now by the lower courts. And I'm just going to mention that the lower courts and the courts of appeals are struggling to really figure out what constitutes an adverse employment action for an employee. And we'll talk about it in more detail on an upcoming show. But I will tell you that they're starting to develop a split among the circuits as to what type of adverse action satisfies for an employee to be able to state a claim against the employer. Are things like simply a reassignment to administrative tasks, adverse employment actions, is it unfavorable shift, an adverse employment action, or does it need to be something more? The courts are struggling with this, and in the meantime, we're starting to see a swell of cases being filed against employers, challenging even the most sort of nondescript type of adverse actions. One thing I will mention real quickly is that we're seeing some cases out there develop where simply denying an accommodation in an ADA setting, that in and of itself is an adverse employment action, which may trigger an analysis under Muldrow. So we'll talk about it on an upcoming show.
Yep. Well, that's a little bit of a teaser. Stay with us and we'll bring it back to you in 2025. There you go. Yeah. All right. Anything else, Bert?
No, we've covered a lot. Just that some big stuff going on with Prop A and the NLRB.
That is great. All right. Well, let's get on with introducing our guest, Karen Price. Karen is I think you're the regional director, Eastern Director of Missouri for several manufacturing plants. Karen, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing in PLZ. Not everyone's familiar with PLZ, so tell us a little bit about PLZ as well.
So PLZ is a national company where we have plants located in multiple states. So it just so happens that the majority of our plants are located here in Eastern Missouri. So I am the regional HR director for our Eastern Missouri region, which consists of 4 manufacturing plants and 2 large warehouse facilities. We have 650 employees here in Franklin County, which is huge for the county. So PLZ is one of the country's leading aerosol and liquid manufacturers. So we do have some contract work that we do for other companies, and we make some big name products, but we also own our own brands. So PLZ purchased Claire about 5 years ago, and Claire is the manufacturer of Sprayway. So I'll put in a plug for Sprayway. It is.
Is this a hairspray?
No.
Okay.
It is a glass cleaner, and it is the world's best glass cleaner.
Wow.
I had to try it to believe it, but it definitely is. And so
well, next time you come to the office here, you need to bring some glass cleaner. Let me try the world's best glass cleaner.
Is this for cars or homes or both? All glasses?
Anything. Yeah, anything. You can use it for anything.
All right.
It's in an aerosol can, and it's a foaming spray, and it really is streak free. So PLZ has worked really hard over the last year to gain presence in this area. And so right now, due to marketing, we've taken over about 11% of Windex's share in the marketplace. And in 2025, we are expected to grow even up to 20% more. And so that's really exciting for PLZ.
If I can just interrupt real quick, and this is completely off the cuff. So I ran over to my little shelf over here, and I happen to have Sprayway, world's best glass cleaner, in my shelf over there.
That's it.
Wow. That's what we're talking about right there. I mean, go out now here. And if you order now, Wait, there's more. We will send you 2 for the price of 1. You just pay for the shipping and handling. And if you're not 100% satisfied, you may return it back to Karen Price and she will refund your money.
Personally,
All right, there you go, Karen. We just improved sales.
That's
All right.
great. I mean, yeah, we're pretty proud of our Sprayway family of brands. So
That's great. Okay, so Karen, like you, I'm going to just read a comment here from my friend Julie. Julie is a very active AIM member, and she is saying that they're expecting their turnover to stay about the same. And that they have, over the last 12 to 18 months or so, they've increased their wages to improve their benefit packages as well. They've done employee satisfaction improvements. They've improved with many of their managers. They improved the satisfaction with those. And they've done a lot of things to improve their turnover. Now, she's coming from healthcare. I know you're familiar with healthcare as well, as you have a background in healthcare management. So those sound like some of the things I know that you worked with Matt and your team has worked with Matt to do. So you guys started with an employee opinion survey and you got some results from that survey, and there was a new management team. You were part of that team being brought on. Kind of take us from there to where you're at today and the improvements you've seen. Walk us through your journey.
So when I first started, I like to listen to what the employees have to say and really take it to heart. You know, if you hear something once, it's okay, you register it. If you hear it again, your ears kind of perk up. If you continue to hear it, then you know you have some issues. And there was some, employees complaining about the leadership that we had on the floor. So oftentimes we love to promote from within. It's what we do, but we were promoting the wrong people. So they were technically good, but they didn't have the leadership skills, right? And so we did do an employee engagement survey. It just confirmed what I already knew. There's multiple questions about your direct supervisor, your direct leader. The results weren't good. And so one of the things that we knew we had to do pretty quickly was move some of the leaders out that we felt we could not work with and work with the leaders that we felt we could grow in those leadership roles. And so that entered AIM into the picture. So I've known of AIM. I worked for another company that was AIM members. We took a look at the training package that they had to offer and felt like it was a good mixture of what our frontline leaders could go through, and then also certain levels of management above them. So for example, we have line leads, we have shift supervisors, and we have production managers. So we had 3 groups of people attending that training. So that was one piece of the retention plan that I put together, was leadership training to improve leadership on the floor across all the plants and warehouses.
Yeah. So I know, and if I think that you have just shy of 100 people you've put through these programs, something around 90 people or so.
Yes, it was over 90 people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that come through the program. So first of all, I just think that shows tremendous commitment from your organization there at PLZ to say, hey, we're going to make a difference, but we have to make an investment. And that investment's not inexpensive. And the most expensive part of the investment seems to be time. And this is why I invited Matt onto the program, because I know in your scenario, Matt works very closely, not only with you, but someone from the production side of the business that's scheduling all these people across 3 different shifts and different operations and different hour amounts of development. Matt, this is a little bit of a maze, but it's what you spend your day doing, right?
Yeah, it was a big logistical undertaking, if you will, to get, because we basically scheduled 7 full days of training. And we had, as Karen shared, over 90 people to coordinate. And we were scheduling on 3 different time starts and ends to accommodate that so we had some morning days, we had some afternoons, some mornings to go into afternoons, we had some afternoons that went into the evenings, and just scheduling with them and their supply chain director to get everything done, and then coordinate that with our facilitator to get there and deliver the training for those multiple people in multiple roles.
Yeah. And I like to just always emphasize this to our listeners because Karen, you're experiencing and living through, the difficulty of getting people there and the commitment financially as well to do that. Matt works, you're 90 of 15,000 people that he has worked with this year to get that through. And my point to that is it's not easy, but that's not a reason not to do it. So tell us more about when you started the program, what you were hoping to achieve and some of the results that you have achieved now.
So for me, I think what I was hoping to see is a different level of leadership on the floor. Leaders that can have those difficult conversations in respectful ways, treat their employees with dignity and respect. Sometimes the busyness or the frustration, you have a piece of equipment going down, the line is not running, you get frustrated and you have a knee-jerk reaction to point fingers. This is a team environment. Those lines are teams. And so we need leaders that can work as a team and bring their employees in to develop the solutions to get the line back up and running. It's everybody's responsibility. And I think that teamwork wasn't there. Talking to people with respect wasn't there. It was more of a dictatorship, if you will, versus working together as a team. So I would say learning how to have those difficult conversations, addressing issues in real time. You can't come back to an employee 3 weeks later and say, oh, by the way, on this day, you did something that wasn't appropriate or I didn't like. But oftentimes leaders they just don't know how to have the conversations. They feel uncomfortable having the conversations. So just getting them a little bit more comfortable managing employees day to day, because frontline supervisors have a lot to do with whether employees stay or not. I mean, we all know on this call that a lot of people do leave because of their managers.
Absolutely. We know it's that and friends at work are the two top reasons that people stay or leave a workplace, followed by compensation. And that's the, I'm looking at the comments here and many of our comments are centered around, well, we've improved our compensation. You have to do that. That's basic 101. That is not strategic necessarily, in my opinion. It's a basic need when we look at the Herzberg model and how we pay people. It's been proven if I'm paid fairly in that basic concept, then it's all those other intangibles that make a huge difference to my satisfaction and retention.
So year one, that was the first thing that I tackled. We were under the 50th percentile for pay. I knew it was an issue, so I put together a whole market analysis, put it before our executive leadership team. So our lowest paid position was 16 an hour. It's now 18, but the bulk of our staff, over 90% of our staff, make 20 or up. So you could realistically have a machine operator making $27 an hour, depending on their skill level. And so it really positioned us well. But as I'm finding, money is not everything to these employees, and it's not what's going to keep them here. It's an environment. Yes, you have to have it to attract the talent. You have to have it to keep the talent to a certain degree, but you also have to have those intangible factors.
Yeah, it is the culture that plays a part within those other basics. Bert, I know you got a question you'd like to ask Karen.
I have a difficult question for you, Karen. You mentioned that you took some people who were really, really good from a technical standpoint and you made them supervisors. And we know that oftentimes doesn't work out despite best intentions of everyone involved. And my question for you is when you address their lack of leadership, their inability to perform as supervisors, what'd you do with those folks? Did you lose them, or were you able to restore them back to a position where they were really, really good, really productive, as you said, excellent from a technical standpoint, or was it untenable to put them back into the regular part of the workforce outside of management? Because that's a really tough issue.
It
Yeah,
is, and
that's
several of them went. I'm going to just answer that for Karen. I'm very familiar with inside information here, Bert. Several of them went and became lawyers. Anyway, Karen, what about the rest of them? Yeah.
so that's a great question. So we did move some of them back to a technical spot. It was a mutual agreement. We put them on performance improvement plans. It wasn't working out. They saw it wasn't working out. And so they went back to a technical role. And some of them were moved out of the organization. We had some real issues on certain shifts at certain plants, and there was nothing that we felt like we could do to salvage those folks. The rest of them are growing and learning, and I will have to say, I have employees every week, at least one or two people say, "Oh, well, I went back to my AIM training and I looked that up again." Just to see. So they did take it seriously, and our off HR offices are across from one of our big conference rooms where the training was held. I could hear people laughing. They were engaged. The speaker was wonderful. And I think that they really appreciated the effort from our part to get them the help that they need. And most of them took it very seriously and still talk about it.
Yeah.
Matt, you get to pat yourself on the back this time.
Go ahead, Matt.
There you go.
But actually, I want to say I think it's really Karen and Tim
Yes.
and the HR and leadership team there. But most importantly, it's those supervisors and managers that are behaving differently that's getting the result. And I hope there's some recognition to that group of individuals, because they're the ones that have to deliver. They're the players on the field per se.
Yes, and I would also like to thank my operations partners. So all of my plant managers, my partner, the director of operations, Jeff Ulrich, for really listening to me and recognizing the need for it and pulling people off the production line in order to take these classes. That is not easy for a manufacturing facility to do. And they were very supportive 100% all the way through.
All right, Nick, let's take a real quick look at the survey results. I think they're quite interesting, and I've been reading the comments, and Deborah's made some comments as well here that I want to reference. So it looks like overall we will remain about the same, about 44% leading the way. But I mean, 33% suggesting it's going to be up due to industry trends. What I'm seeing in the comments, I just want to highlight a few things, and we'll expand on this with Mikey Mack on the program next week. And that is, we have to. It's a must. It's an imperative. It's without option to even be in the game of retention. We have to provide fair wages and benefits. And I'm not going to define what fair wages and benefits are. That's for each organization to discover. But there's got to be a strategy that says this is how we maintain our position. So many of the people who are saying, oh, it's going to maintain, and they've already made comments that, well, we pay competitively, we've increased our wages. What we know works is when you have a model that keeps you in that position. It keeps you right where you're positioned from a wage standpoint. So you're constantly looking and tracking your wages and benefits against the market. And then it's everything else that you do, right? It's just what Karen was saying. It's committing to developing the supervisors. It's making sure we're addressing the poor performers. It's, allowing them to express themselves and be a part of the culture that creates an environment that people want to be a part of. And Karen, I am very thankful for you joining the program today, and for yourself and my friend Tim LaGrossa. I hope he's listening. Hey there, Tim. Happy to have all of you all part of our membership, and we look forward to helping you along your journey as you continue to move forward. Matt, thanks for a great job. Bert, as always, thank you. We'll miss you next week. But we will be back next week at 7:30 Central Time with Mikey Mack, and we're going to talk a little bit more about competitive pay and what he's seeing for pay increases in 2025. Until then, let's go out and let's be good to someone. Bye-bye.
Now, I have to add something before we go here. Just one thing.
I just closed that so well.
It was beautiful, and we can always clip this off after the fact. This may be just for my parents so they know I'm doing something productive with my life. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
But we got something in, and I think we have just become the #1 show in Caraco.
Oh my
Number one
goodness.
show
You know,
in
I
Caraco.
saw you putting that up there. I wasn't sure what that was.
That was a live photo that
I
was
think
taken
that
here
looks
this
like
morning.
Fred Thaw's hand right there.
Yeah,
Your
Yeah.
boss, Nick. I think that's your boss's hand in Caraco.
that may be, but he's not far from my parent as well. So
Hey, we
I
got to
think
be
it all makes
#1
sense.
someplace, don't we? Yeah.
All right.
All
So-
right.
Amazing.
Hey, we've made it, Bert.
Amazing
all
work.
because of you, Karen. All
Well,
because of
thank
you,
you.
our guest today. That's right. All right. Thank you. You all take care. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Go out and be good to people. Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues. Forward our invites. Share the link, aimea.org/This Week at Work, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment. LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we're everywhere you are. Don't forget you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.